Hello?
All right, hey man.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. I'm coming out of a cold, but I'm doing pretty good. But if I'm coughing a little bit, my apologies.
Oh, not a problem. I absolutely understand. But with that, I thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. As a longtime fan of your work, Scar Symmetry and otherwise, I am so happy to be able to talk to you and be able to talk about some brand new Scar Symmetry that's coming out 3 weeks from today through Nuclear Blast.
Finally, yeah, man.
And I'm so happy to see it too. I mean, again, as I mentioned, a longtime fan of Scar Symmetry. I'm so happy to see the new album finally seeing the light of day and getting the pleasure to be able to check out this album several times this week already. And I just love everything that I'm hearing. It feels like a great uh, uh, continuation of phase one and just seeing everything that these songs are capable of, the great melodies and harmonies that are going on. You're absolutely insane solos that go on throughout it, and just continuing this awesome story that's being created.
Wow, thanks, man. Uh, what's the worst thing about it? What's your least favorite part?
I think with a lot of people, the wait. I just having the wait 9 years, but I think it was still worth the wait though. I'm so happy that it did come out. I mean, if I'm trying to find a fault with anything musically, I haven't found it yet.
That's that's a nice review right there.
Oh, well, thank you, and thank you very much for creating the music. So, thinking about that, I mean, obviously, with uh, a bit of time waiting for this and everything, like, how are you feeling about the album coming out in just a few weeks now?
Well, having that first single getting released was pretty epic, I must say, because it's been such a long time working on this album. So for a while there, it felt like we would never finish it. We would never get it released. And like the last couple of years, that there were some like unfortunate events where the artwork, some stuff with the artwork delayed the release with almost a year. Um, Things like that. That made it seem like, oh well, another thing shows up that delays the release, but just kept piling up. So it felt like the even though the album was finished, the release just kept getting pushed further and further. So when finally that first single released, it felt kind of unreal at first because uh, it had just been a distant dream for such a long time. But it's interesting because the songs were written back in 2016. So uh, for us, the music is kind of old, really, you know. Uh, but the moment that first song premiered on YouTube as a video and showed up on the streaming services, and I could have a listen uh, like in real time where when the fans were listening to it the first time, and I could follow some of the discussions in the different comment sections and see what people thought about it, and that made me sort of experience the song from an outsider's perspective, and yeah, and suddenly it didn't feel all that old anymore. So that was pretty neat.
And I'm so glad to hear that too. And having to gotten the chance to see you guys in 2016 at Prague Power USA, I was so excited. Obviously the album was in the works, and obviously a lot of delays have happened since then. But it's just like I was waiting ever since I got the chance to see you guys, waiting for this album. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I think it was well worth the wait. And when that first single came out, when that first video came out, that I felt just perfectly matched the song, it felt like everything was just brand new again. And while the songs have been there for years and years for yourselves, it felt brand new to me. It doesn't feel old or contrived or anything. It feels like it was just written last year.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Uh, like for me now, it feels like that album. It was written like it's connected to the same era of my life as Neo Humanity, because they are not separated by that many years. Uh, so and now 9 years after Neo Humanity, it's like for myself as the band's songwriter now, the sole composer. Uh, that was like a different era of my life when I did that, and so many things have happened since. Uh, I've toured with two of my favorite bands, Nocturnal Rites and Meshuggah. I became a dad in 19, and the entire world had to endure the pandemic. Uh, all these things, and just the fact, just growing older and learning more about oneself, and uh, I'm about to head into a new writing writing period where I'm gonna start working on new material for Scar Symmetries. It's very interesting to have all this music that feels like it's from the same era, even though the new album feels new to the fans, obviously, because they haven't heard it. But for me, it belongs to that older era, and now I'm gonna be creative again for Scar Symmetry, being what I am today. So that's kind of exciting for me to see what's gonna come out of it.
So going into that a little bit deeper, like have you started coming up with any ideas for the next release for Scar Symmetry, or is that still just in the early works? How's that going about?
Uh, as for like phase three,
Yeah.
I have things I wanna do. I don't really have all that much music written, really. It's more like before we even wrote a single note or a single piece of lyric for the trilogy, we came up with a synopsis, what each part was gonna be about. Um, so I early on had an idea of what where the phases were gonna go stylistically. So phase one is kind of is progressive, but it's also very melodic, uh, and there's kind of almost there's kind of a big focus on also like keyboards and and now in phase two it's still progressive, little less dependent on keyboards, I think. uh, it's not as like shiny and glossy, even though we have that as well, but there's more emphasis on guitars and blast beats and heavy dark stuff. um, so and like phase one is musically, to me, it feels like it's its own thing. It's like self-contained, like the story, you listen to the entire thing to the end, and like it starts with a melody that it also ends with, so it almost feels like when you're done with the last song, you could just go skip back to the first song and just cycle through it again if you're not uh, fulfilled already. And then phase two feels a little bit more open-ended. It starts sort of starts the way phase one ended, uh, in the same kind of fashion with like blast beats and stuff. And there's a melody from the last song of phase one that occurs in this first song of phase two. But the album ends a little bit more on a like a, I don't know, like a question mark or something, where to me, like the way I feel, it's like opens up for phase three. But phase one and phase two are kind of sort of independent from each other, even though there are some, common threads. But phase three is going to be the one that really has to tie everything together, and there's needs to be like stuff from phase one and two that like gets together in phase three, and like parts that overlap with each other. There are some cool ideas for that that I have. And then by at the end of phase three, it really has to uh, close out the story. Uh, Everyone needs closure. You cannot just like end on a song and be like, well, that's it. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, I love that. And that's also what really got me excited, especially the first time I heard the new album, and specifically like you're talking about, it feels very open-ended at the end, and it feels like a musical cliffhanger to me. It's like I want to hear what's going to happen next. Like it really does have that great moment of like you're waiting for the next song to kick in, but that's the end of phase two, and that's got me very excited because that gives me a lot to look forward to with phase three. Just
Yeah.
knowing that it feels like it's gonna come to that epic conclusion, but just
Mm.
having it end on that musical cliffhanger is just very exciting and a good way to go about it.
Yeah, because it feels like the last song, Xenotaph, it doesn't have a. I mean, the ending you can argue that it's kind of epic in a way, but it's like it just gets like calmer and calmer, and it kind of fizzles out into nothingness. There's like no grand like at the end. It just like fades away. Uh, yeah, so I'm really excited for phase three. But having that said, there's also the like right now as I'm about to start writing, uh, I'm kind of in a place where since every album we've ever done have always been a sort of reaction to the previous album, either that either in the way that we've been on a like a trajectory, like holographic universe was like the like each of the first three albums they became more and more like produced and polished, and holographic universe was sort of the logical conclusion of that trajectory. So when we did dark matter dimensions, it felt like we couldn't possibly polish this thing anymore. It would be ridiculous. It would, I don't know what it would turn into. It wouldn't sound like metal anymore. We had to like round off all the edges and there would be nothing left. So so dark matter dimensions happened. It was like a more, yeah, like a more dirty, punky album in a way. Um, and that was what we needed to do. We needed to take it somewhere else, and it's always been like that. Uh, and right now I'm like I have done two albums that have been both have been like kind of progressive uh, and they have both had their flavors. Phase one was melodic, and phase two is heavy. So so now I'm like I'm not sure if I have phase three in me right away, or like am I feeling more in a to go in another direction, and so the idea right now is I'm gonna have two folders in my computers. I'm gonna write stuff and see like what stuff's gonna fit into the phase three folder and what stuff's gonna fit in the other project folder, and then we'll see which cup gets full first, and that is gonna be the cup that the fans are gonna get to drink from first.
And I think that's a really great way to do it as well, too. I mean, you want to feel fulfilled with whatever endeavor you want to be going with next. And if it is phase three, if it is a different album or EP or whatever comes up next with outside of this trilogy, that could be great as well, too. And also thinking about that as well too. I mean, the fact that you haven't just had to focus on Scar Symmetry over the last few years. I mean, like you mentioned in the beginning, you got to work with two amazing bands over the last several years with Meshuggah and Nocturnal Rites. How has that changed you? Like, I mean, has that changed you at all when it comes to your songwriting or the way you play guitar or working with others?
Uh, Sorry. Uh, um, has it changed me? I mean, for sure, it's influenced me in certain ways. Um, I'm not sure. Maybe not so much musically. More of the fact that uh, I got to be in two new like groups to see two other bands from within. Uh, Nocturnal Rites is wasn't that much different from Scar Symmetry because like the kind of how popular and big the bands are, we were playing on like roughly the same level. But Meshuggah was a big step up for me, obviously, because Meshuggah is one of the bigger bands. So getting the chance to tour with them for a few years, I got to see the inside of how a bigger, more successful band operates, because since they are a big band, like they needed to set up their business and how they operate differently, like they had to get their shit together. Whereas since we were never like that big, we could do it. We could just wing things, and sometimes to our detriment, that we didn't have certain things in order. So coming back from doing that thing, I've learned a lot on of how you can do it. So uh, and I brought a lot of that with me to Scar Symmetry.
And
Like,
I'm glad to see you were able to take something like that away from it as well too. I mean, obviously with being able to play with some amazing musicians and being able to play some amazing songs both with Nocturnal Rites and Meshuggah, and just being able to bring something cool back like that, just like from the operation standpoint in the Scar Symmetry. That's a great thing to hear.
yeah, and it's really been like the thing that has enabled us to even come back as a band. Because before I started touring with the other bands, since we'd never figured out some organizational things, I had to be the band's like business manager and touring manager and all these things, uh, which was really like a lot of job, like a lot of work for me, and it kind of burnt me out that um, in like 16, 17, I was really burnt out, and I was like, every time we were going out to do a show or a tour, I was so stressed out that like I got ulcers, and yeah, just wasn't a pleasurable time for me, even though like the time on stage was nice and everything. And so I kind of almost like fell out of love with doing Scar Symmetry. I mean, I love the music and I love the guys, uh, but it was too much work for me to handle, because it's like managing stuff like that. It's not what comes easy to me. Like I'm almost like an idiot in regards of those things. So enabled to be able to come back with the band, I had needed to set things up in a different way. So we got ourselves some management, new booking agencies. Uh, I've moved my company from like a private employed to an LLC, things like that. Got legal representation, and then we got a new deal with Nuclear Blast. So all these things that were set into place was really super helpful to bring us back. And now it's so much easier to go out and play, because now we have a really amazing crew that we tour with. Like we have a lot of gear, so we mostly bring all of our stuff in a truck, so instead of just like flying with our guitars and just hoping for the best. So yeah, so we really have been able to upgrade our live show in terms of that. We'll always have our own sound guy and our own like guitar tech. And so like now we've been doing live shows that been like much better than we've ever done it, because it's now we have everything in order to be able to play our best and do our best job.
So thinking about that a little bit deeper, like how are you feeling now when it comes to like physically and mentally, especially with all these changes?
Well, not having to worry about if gear is gonna break down and if we're gonna be able to afford like replacing stuff and like coming to a venue or a festival and not knowing if the gear is gonna be in the best shape and if it's gonna be what we need and what the crew uh, like the in-house the crew is gonna be like if things gonna work out. Now we can travel with all our own stuff, so we always have our own drum kit, our own in-ear monitors, and like our own. We have our own monitor mixer, our own front of house mixer, and uh, so it just the fact that we always have, since we use in-ear monitors, that's like what most bands do nowadays. Uh, since we have that and we have all of our own gear, we always have like this, the the same sound in our ear, so we don't have to endure like really crappy monitoring. Like for example, if I have bad monitors or anyone in the band, since we like most of us sing and we do backing vocals and if we don't have like proper monitors, like the pitch can be off as hell. There's certainly many examples of that on YouTube if you wanna dive into it and listen to all the times when I sang like crap. So and now we have inner monitors, so it's much easier to play tight and sing well and all these things. And I don't have to go up on stage and be worried like if my guitar is gonna break down. I just give the guitar to my tech and I get a new one and yeah, so it's all these things that are very helpful behind the scenes stuff.
And that is so great to hear too. I mean, especially when you can take so many of the problems that go in there. I mean, obviously not all problems are going to be solved, but when you can take so many of them away and other people are able to deal with them while you're able to work on the stage show, work on the songs, the songwriting, recording, everything that goes into it that way, it's just going to make everyone in the band feel better. It's going to make the shows better. And and that's really got me excited, much like yourself, for what's going to be coming up next with Scar Symmetry, because it does feel like everything that you've talked about will be a new chapter of the band. And I'm very excited to see what this new rejuvenated Scar Symmetry is going to be all about.
Yeah, and yeah, we've done a few shows so far in support of the album. We did a arena tour with Meshuggah in Sweden, played 6 arena shows, which was amazing in many regards. It was amazing because we were fortunate enough to have it coincide with the release of that first single. We released Scorched Quadrant on the day of the first show, and we started playing the song that night as well, which was really cool to just be able to like test the song out in a live setting right away. And so far it's been working really well. I've seen people sing along and stuff. So and doing it in an arena setting was amazing with my former employers, Meshuggah, and and it's really cool to see that they have reached a place where they can actually headline arenas in Sweden. That's like, I think that's kind of new for them. I don't think they could do that many years ago, like in a few years ago, just. Uh, and we opened each night. So we were the first band out. Uh, and still like there were like a lot of people even though we played early. I mean the first tours we did back in the day when we opened, there could be like no one was there when we started playing, and so people were slowly started to come in during our set waiting for the headliner. But like it was pretty packed from the very start, and for all the bands, so it was a really cool tour. So yeah, we just hope to be able to tour as and play live as much as possible in the coming years. Just get busy again, get much more busy in the studio, put out more music. I'm certainly very excited about doing new music, and then be able to get out there and meet all the people again, and go back to all everywhere where we've been and seen new places. You saw us at Prague Power. We would love to come back to Prague Power. We have some friends there in the organization, so I'm sure that at some point it will happen.
Oh, and that all of that just makes me so happy to hear. I mean, even though you're still recovering, I can tell how happy you are with the way everything has gone with the touring and the reception to the new singles. I absolutely love the new album. And again, it's just got me so excited to see what's going to be coming in the future. And knowing that touring plans are coming up whenever they get announced, whenever they get lined up, I'll be very excited to see everything that comes from that. And yeah, just seeing that Scar Symmetry is back and as strong as ever, if not stronger than ever, and just everything that'll come in the future. There's so much to look forward to, and I'm so happy to see all of that happening for you guys.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
I think we're gonna have a some interesting years ahead of us.
Oh, fantastic. So just one last thing before we go. I know it's a busy time with press time and everything else that's going on in your world. Obviously, again, with being able to work with such great bands over the years, are you going to continue doing that, or are you more focused on Scar Symmetry right now?
Yeah, that's also a part of the thing. I guess a few years ago, I why the album has been delayed much is that I probably for a bit there I did spread myself too thin, and I did a lot of like production work for other bands. Uh, Also, so some time ago I decided to was not gonna do any more production work for other bands. I was just gonna focus on my own music, and obviously since a few years I don't tour with Meshuggah anymore because Fredrik came back and reclaimed his position, which is amazing, and I'm very happy to see him back. Uh, so like right now I'm still a member of Kaipa and Nocturnal Rites. So those are the two other bands that I'm still involved with, but things have been really slow with Nocturnal Rites. I'm not sure. We don't have any plans for anything at the moment, so I'm not sure how busy we are gonna be. It's basically up to them because it's sort of the other guys. They have had the band for so many years. It's kind of their band, and I've been just playing lead guitar and enjoying myself. So if they decide to do an album and start playing again, I I would be excited to see if I could fit it in my schedule. And Kaipa is just a studio project, so whenever they decide to do an album, it's like a few weeks work for me, and that's it. So Scar Symmetry will be my main focus in the coming years. So
Oh,
yeah, so and it's so good to be back with the guys. Uh, they they were patiently waiting for me for a few years there. I mean, they were busy with other things as well, so they were not like sitting and like when is he's gonna come back. They did other things for sure, but still, now we're back, and it just feels so good to be home and doing it again. So, and I'm so incredibly thankful that people still seem to be on board with us. That because during all these years of like less activity from the band, like maybe the fan base would just like fade away, but it almost feels like we've grown in the past few years. So that's just incredible.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm so glad to see that as well too. I mean, again, like the fact over the last several years, you got to spread more of your musical wings, whether it be production, being working with these other great bands, studio work, or on stage, or actually in the band, whatever the case is. But just the like you mentioned, Scar Symmetry is still huge and still getting popular and getting more and more views and listens and more people showing up for the touring. And of course, when you get these opportunities like being able to open for Meshuggah on a tour, I mean, that's got to be such an incredible feeling knowing that your band is getting that exposure to a bigger audience as well too. And that's only going to keep going
For
on
sure.
with this. And with the new album, I feel like so many great opportunities are going to be coming from this. I know I can't be the only one feeling as excited about this album. The rest of the world I know is going to be having great feelings behind this, and it's just been incredible to be able to talk to you about all of this and getting insights, be it Scar Symmetry, what to look forward to in the future, if anything does happen more, especially with Nocturnal Rites. I loved what you did with the last album, and just everything that's going on in your world right now. I really appreciate you being able to take the time to be able to talk to me about all of it.
Yeah, was a really good talk, man.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Before we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to mention that I hadn't brought up yet?
Uh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Oh,
We
well,
we covered
cool.
a
Well,
lot of ground.
yeah, I was hoping to do that. It's just like this is a interview I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I'm so glad I was able to do it and cover so much ground with it. And yeah, again with the new album coming out 3 weeks from today through Nuclear Blast, I'm so excited for everyone else to be able to get the chance to hear it. I can't wait to be able to spin it again after I get done editing this interview. I'm gonna go right back and start listening to it again and dissecting it more and more and appreciating more about it.
Oh, sweet, sweet, man. There are certainly some surprises on the album. I think like the song Altergeist. I think that's gonna be uh, yes, a bit surprising to people because it's such a fast song. It's like a different vibe from us, but I think it's appropriate within the context of the Singularity and Phase Two.
Oh, very much so. And just hearing that, and obviously being able to hear the song already, I was starting to appreciate it. And I love the the more musicality being spread out throughout the album. But yeah, I mean, the more I get to listen to it, the more I'll be able to appreciate those nuances. And yeah, just again, like you mentioned before, I'm very excited to see what's going to be happening with the future of Scar Symmetry when it comes to touring and the new music, and just being able to talk about all of it. This was such a great time, and I just want to thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll hope we get to talk again very soon when we release the next album. It's not gonna be 9 years from now. A little
Well,
bit less, maybe 7 years or six. We'll see.
got to make it realistic.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, whenever it happens and when it feels right, I can't wait to hear that. And again, with the new album coming out 3 weeks from today from Nuclear Blast, once again, one last time, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I know it's a busy time for you, so I appreciate the time, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
You too, Josh. Take
Thank
care,
you.
man.
You too.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.